What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I wanted to talk about Bally's 1967 Orient. If you've been listening for a long time here, I've been doing a chronological overview of all of Bally's bingos. We've made it to 1967, and we actually just skipped over Zodiac. I did a little overview of Zodiac in a previous episode, so here we are at the Orient. Orient is a 20-hole game, and as such, it has a moving numbers feature, which is unlike any of the 25-hole games that I've previously talked about. This is another Mystic Lines game. Mystic Lines allow you to move the center column of numbers up or down and swap the leftmost two columns and the rightmost two columns. This is all under player control using the buttons located on the footrail. Orient has quadruple deck scoring. That means there are separate odds for red, green, yellow, and blue. For 3 in a section, the game will pay 4 replays at a minimum, all the way up to 192. 16 for 4 in a section, all the way up to 480. And 75 for 5 in a section, all the way up to 600. Now, I mentioned sections because with the 20-hole games, Bally did away with inline scoring. There are only 20 numbers on the bingo card on the Backglass, no repeated numbers. And therefore, Bally had to do something a little different. And so they took the section scoring from the Magic Screen games and moved it to this only section scoring type of game, the Mystic Lines games. Now the only issue with this is that they took one of the numbers in each section and marked it with a star. This star zone will not score at all unless it's the 5th in that section. As an example, let's take the green section. You have 7, 9, and 17 on Orient. And if you got 7, 9, and 17, you don't have a winner. But if you got 7, 9, and 13, you would. The only time that 17 counts is if you have 7, 9, 13, 19, and 17 all together. So, in that way, the star zone is kind of a ripoff. But it is useful for 2 features. The game will randomly light numbers lit in all 4 star zones for 300 or 600 replays. And it will also light the red letter game. The red letter feature takes the name of the game, in this case Orient, which if you'll notice is 6 letters, and in line with your red odds, it will light one of the letters in Orient in red. That letter gives you a guaranteed free game with high odds and features. Now, just how high those odds and features go is dependent on the score and instruction card, and each letter in sequence is going to give you better and better and better odds and features. Now, you can win this red letter game by getting 3 numbers in the star zones or just 2 numbers in the star zones. And that's fairly easy to do. Similar to the Magic Screen games where you only needed 2 in the orange section in order to get your red letter game, getting 2 in the star zones is not a huge deal. 3 is a little more difficult, and getting all 4 star zones in order to get that huge payoff is pretty darn difficult. Now this game has double and triple scoring in any one color, as many of the games before it. It also has an extended time tree to allow you to move those Mystic Lines. By default, it will lock you out of moving them before shooting your 4th ball. However, you can earn the chance to light before 5th or even after 5th. There are also rollovers on the playfield about 2/3 of the way down. On the left-hand side, there's a yellow rollover, and if you hit it while lit, it will automatically advance you to before 5th. The red rollover on the other side of the playfield, if you hit that while it's lit, it will automatically advance you to after 5th. Now this game also has an extra ball feature. So after you shoot your 5 balls, you can play for a chance at getting an extra ball. In order to play for the chance, you have to have either replays or coins. And how much it costs is dependent on how good of a game you're having, how good of a game you've had in the past, and also just how the game feels about you at that particular moment. Now, the game on the front of the cabinet has what's called pick-a-play buttons. These are different colored buttons which will do different things with your money when you put it into the game. Yes, this is a multi-coin pinball machine. Your first coin starts it up, and additional coins will give you a chance at advancing features, odds, or both. Your blue button advances only your odds, your green button advances only your features, and your red button advances only your scores. Now, Orient was the first game that Bally produced in the bingo line with solid-state components. And this was in 1967. So this is very early in the solid-state experimentation era, and way before solid-state components were added to flipper games. Now, what's pretty interesting is that it needed the solid-state components because the cab was pretty much full of units. And they wanted to add a big feature. This feature would allow you to play an entirely separate game. And the way that it worked is this. You have a white button that will allow you to coin up for odds on this special game. They call this game the double up game. And this is an interesting little meta game within the game. And the way it worked is this. You had to land in an even number with your first ball, an odd number with your second ball, and then an even number with your third ball. Now, when you did so, you could collect. And if you collected, then you get anywhere from 3 replays all the way up to 54, depending on how much you coined in. But with your fourth ball, if you landed in an odd hole, then you could double how much you earned. So you get anywhere from 6 replays to 108 replays. That's pretty enticing. All you have to do is just get one more odd number, and it can be any of the odd numbers. It doesn't even matter which one it is. Well, with your fifth ball, you could double it again. So you could go all the way up from 12 replays to 216 replays. Now, I just want to point out that your odds of actually doing this decrease quite a bit as you shoot your balls. But as far as a metagame goes, this one sounds relatively easy. Now, the way that the game knows if you've actually done it is with that solid-state circuitry. It's got an actual board that's covered with a nice shield inside the cabinet. And it will determine, based on which switches are closed on the playfield, if you've made an odd or even hole. Now, the other interesting thing about this is it also knows if you've missed. And if you've missed, then your bet is forfeit. You don't get to collect on the double up game. Now, what's really, really interesting about this is that while you're playing this double up game, you're also playing the other game. And so if you manage to arrange your numbers in such a way, if you manage to call out and shoot for particular numbers, you can actually get a winner in any of the sections. As long as you have your mystic lines lit, you can reposition all your numbers, remember. So that's pretty cool. Gives you an awful lot to think about. Now, later solid-state games would do things like carryover features, which move from game to game. But in this case, I think it's a really, really good first effort as far as what they did, and it's incredibly intriguing. I would really like to try one of these with a newly rebuilt board. Now, the problem with these solid-state boards, as I understand it, I've never worked on one, almost all of them need recapping. And that's because the capacitors that they used are 50-ish years old, so it's probably about time that they get a little refresh. So, luckily, these boards are probably not incredibly difficult to work on because they are not going to have a lot of components. The traces are going to be hand cut rather than machine cut. And so many of the dangers of working on a solid-state board are at least somewhat mitigated with this type of early solid-state attempt here. So let's talk about artwork. This game has a Chinese theme, and there are multiple people. Lantern Festival. You've got a lot of activity leading up to a large building in the background, and I don't know enough about China to know what kind of building that is, so I won't make the attempt there. Let's talk about the cabinet. The cabinet has Chinese lanterns decorating the side and a couple of odd characters which are supposed to be reminiscent of Chinese. You have a couple of red geometric shapes in the background, and otherwise the cap is white. And then looking at the playfield, this game has a very colorful playfield. The base color is actually pink, and you have multiple people that are dancing in the festival, and you have alternating blue and red for the triangles which underscore each of the numbered holes, and then a peach triangle which goes upward in between each number. I like the playfield artwork quite a bit. I think it is pretty dynamic, and the pink is a nice change of pace. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.